Good evening and welcome to our second University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine Dean Circle Town Hall. My name is Christy Thorson and I am the Associate Dean for Advancement and Administration. When we relaunched the Dean Circle 2 years ago, we did so to really recognize you, our most generous and loyal donors, and to make sure we're keeping you up to date with the most current news from the Dean. In addition to a few special email updates from the Dean, we thought this spring town hall would be a nice complement to our in-person Dean's Luncheon we host in the fall. We are so grateful for not only your support, but also that you chose to spend part of your evening with us to hear from tonight, not only current Dean Mark Markell, but also our incoming Dean, John Levine. It's my pleasure to start us off tonight by introducing Dean Mark Markell. As you all probably know, Mark has been Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine since September 2012. He announced last summer that he would be stepping down from the Dean position this year to return to the faculty. In addition, last year he was elected as President-elect of the AO Foundation, the world's largest orthopedic education foundation. And Mark will be the first veterinarian to lead the organization in its 65-year history. Tonight, we've asked Mark to talk not only about what's happening today at the school, but to reflect a bit on his nearly 12 years as Dean. And after his remarks, he will introduce Dr. Levine. Following Dr. Levine's comments, we will respond to questions. Thank you to those of you who have submitted your questions in advance. We'll start with those, but please feel free to also submit your questions via the chat. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. I understand that there might have been a little audio delay. And so again, my name is Christy Thorson. I'm the Associate Dean for Advancement and Administration. And we're really glad to have you join us this evening. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dean Mark Markell.
Thank you, Christy. My advancement team thought it would be exciting to change this up a little bit. And so it happens to be that I'm having a colonoscopy tomorrow and I'm in the middle of my colon prep. So what that means is what we're gonna do, because my appearance is gonna be unpredictable, and I hope you're smiling at least, we're gonna show a video that I did yesterday, and then I'm gonna wrap it up and then ultimately introduce our next Dean. So with that, I first want to say, and I'll say this on the video too, but thank you for all that you do for the school. The reason that we are who we are and where we've come is because of you. So with that, launch that video.
Welcome to the Dean Circle Town Hall. And I want to thank you, the Friends of the School of Veterinary Medicine, for all that you've done over the course of the last many years to support the school and all that it's trying to achieve. You are our most loyal and generous friends. I'm happy to be meeting with you for our second spring virtual meeting, an opportunity to provide an update on all that the school is pursuing, as well as what we've achieved over the last year. This is in addition to the fall Dean Circle Luncheon that'll occur on September 12th in 2024. The occasion is bittersweet for me. This is the last time that I will be at this presentation. As many of you may know, I'm stepping down on August 1st of this year, and John Levine, who's right now at Texas A&M University, will be the next new Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine. And I'll be proud to introduce you to John at the end of my presentation. Now for a side note, if you're actually watching this video, that's because I'm incapacitated or sidetracked right now. It just happens to be that I have a scheduled colonoscopy for tomorrow, and I'll be in the middle of drinking my Go Lightly prep, and my team felt it would be wise to produce this video in case I'm unavailable for that particular presentation on Wednesday night. So let me walk you back through the last 12 years. As you may know, I began as the Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine on September 1, 2012. And now, almost 12 years later, I'll be stepping down on August 1st of this year, a month shy of that 12th year anniversary. So I thought it'd be a time to reflect back on much that we've achieved and accomplished as a school, with our faculty and staff being the principal players in going down that path. So this is just a list of a variety of things that we've achieved, and certainly is not exhaustive. First, we built and created the new Rank Learning Center. The Rank Learning Center, as you know, has not only a clinical skills training laboratory, but also a new study area, much new light, as well as an active integrative learning space. And I think has been a tremendous value and improvement in how we educate our students. We created a new school entrance with our giraffe, as you know, but also made it much more welcoming than it was before that. In the last decade, we created WisCares. WisCares is the program that supports those that are housing unstable or homeless, and have tremendously grown that program over the last many years. It serves as a perfect space to teach our students about cultural competency and also support our community. In addition to WisCares, an exciting project that enabled us to serve the community, we also are now national leaders in our shelter medicine program led by Sandra Newberry. We began that effort almost a decade ago, and we've grown in numbers and in how we teach our students, with our ambulatory program having more than 75% of our students attending the shelter medicine rotation. It's a tremendous opportunity to serve this group of animals that are in need of both medical treatment as well as surgical treatment. Many of our students have an opportunity to spay and neuter those animals that need it, and I think it's a tremendous way that we can serve the community of animals that are in such great need. We created a new wildlife program in the last 5 years where statewide we support both wildlife medical treatment education, as well as support the teaching of our students in how to manage and teach about wildlife medicine. We created a new DVM PhD program, which now has 8 students within it, 1 in each year. It basically starts with 2 years in the veterinary medical education program as veterinary medical students, then 4 years for their PhD, and then concluding with an additional 2 years of their veterinary medical degree program to complete both their DVM and PhD. We've grown our class size from 80 to 96, so by 20%. We've increased our faculty numbers by 25% to about 110 right now. And we've increased our research grant support by more than 100% this past year, at $40 million in the past year as far as awards. We've increased our hospital caseload to 30,000 patient visits a year, more than a 50% increase in caseload. And importantly, due to your contributions and efforts, we've dramatically increased our scholarship support. We've grown from giving out approximately $800,000 a year 10 years ago to now giving out $2.2 million a year, over 175% increase. And the scholarship endowment has grown from $11 million to now $25 million. So it is through the efforts and philanthropy of individuals like you that we've been able to grow that so successfully. We've also grown our faculty chairs from 2 to now 9, and which is a tremendous way to acknowledge and honor those in particular fields of pursuit, whether it be in cancer or in other areas of expertise. We have, as you know, 4 years ago now, had our first and only probably Super Bowl commercial, where the WeatherTech commercial highlighted the School of Veterinary Medicine and all that it does to treat canine cancer. A tremendous boon to both our reputation as well as the fundraising that we do in support of cancer research. We had our first Nobel Prize winner, Bill Campbell, who received the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. He was one of our veterinary science graduate students, a program that is now called Animal Health and Biomedical Sciences, but the same graduate program that is now within the School of Veterinary Medicine. We hired our first assistant dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion, Richard Barajas, who is also focused on the well-being of our students. We've grown our well-being support by having 2 in-house counselors that are dedicated to our students' well-being. In addition, we have a dedicated social worker in our hospital that help both with our hospital employees, our faculty in the hospital, as well as our clients as they deal with potentially bad news or challenging news about their pets. We started the School of Veterinary Medicine Alumni Association, led by Christy Thorson as our Alumni Association Director. We pursued a wide array of research in infectious diseases, and as I've told you in the past, the School of Veterinary Medicine conducts about 75% of all the infectious disease research on the campus. We were one of the first to discover Zika virus infections in Central and South America. With Tom Friedrichs and others, we as the UW-Madison campus were leaders as far as understanding COVID-19 transmission. Yoshi Kaoka is developing a vaccine for COVID that's combined with a flu vaccine, and many other efforts around tuberculosis, influenza, in addition to Zika and COVID. Over the past 10 years, we've had 2 accreditation site visits and passed both successfully. And as you may know, in our new building project, we've significantly improved our large animal hospital. We've created a new large animal arena, which will open later this spring, as well as a new large animal isolation facility, the only one of its kind in the state of Wisconsin, which will also open sometime in the next year. And importantly, and as you know, a tremendous effort was conducted and completed in support of a new building now called our North Building Addition. That building will double the size of our small animal hospital, significantly enhances our research spaces, both basic BSL-2 we call them, research spaces, as well as infectious disease research spaces. In fact, that infectious disease research space will triple in size with the opening of our 3rd floor. We were asked to raise approximately $35 million in support of that project, but ultimately raised $62.5 million in support of that project because of it becoming ultimately or finally a $185 million project. We hope to open later this spring the first 2 floors of that building, with the small animal hospital opening in that time frame. We'll then move many of our folks into the new hospital out of our current hospital so that we can remodel and revitalize our current hospital, with that being completed in approximately a year. In addition to our new building project, I'm also excited about our new curricular revision. We've been working on it for the last 4 years. My hope is in the next week, we have a vote that's open right now, with it concluding on Monday morning at 8 a.m., which will hopefully approve our new curriculum. It's designed to enhance the competencies of our veterinary students as they graduate. We call them day 1 competencies. We believe it'll be a much more aligned program with what we want them to achieve as veterinarians. We'll begin with earlier introduction into the clinic. We have clinical skills training that'll start basically on the first day that they start in veterinary medical school. There'll also be professional skills training around communication and business acumen. So I think it will be a tremendous way to improve the education we deliver to our students. And that vote will close on Monday at 8 a.m. and hopefully that'll be positive. And if so, we'll begin that new curriculum in September of 2025. So it's a super exciting time here at the School of Veterinary Medicine. I am absolutely thrilled with the person who is announced to replace me, John Levine. He's a neurologist, super talented person, and it's my pleasure now to introduce John to you and let you know what his vision is as he assumes the dean's position on August 1st. Thank you again for all that you do for the School of Veterinary Medicine, and I wish you all the best.
So as you can see, we thought I wouldn't be available at all. So I'll just say thank you, Mark, for that presentation. What I want to just wrap up with is, as I reflect on the last 12 years as dean, but 34 years on the campus, 23 years in support of our donors, it's all about the relationships that we create with each other, whether it's my faculty with you as our donors, whether it's our students, whether it's us across the country. And what I really reflect on is the value of those relationships and what they've meant to me personally, as well as ultimately what it's meant to the school over the course of the last 25 years. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. I want to again encourage you to attend our September 12, 2024 Dean's Luncheon, which John will obviously chair. And it's my pleasure, as I said in the video you just saw, to introduce our next dean, effective August 1st, John Levine.
Well, it is absolutely fantastic to get the chance to interface with all of you virtually. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, I think the work that Mark has done for the school has been absolutely amazing. In a 12-year span, he's elevated Wisconsin's reputation. He has helped support a variety of individuals, including our students, faculty, and it's a real honor to get to follow in his footsteps. I also want to share that I am really, really looking forward to meeting each and every one of you at the Dean's Luncheon. This is an unusual format for a first meeting for me. And I want to echo what Mark said, that I think philanthropy is about relationships. It's about shared passion. It's about aligning what donors are interested in and what the school needs and what the profession needs. So thank you very much for your support and what I hope will be continued enthusiastic support. I wanted to share a few items before we get going with questions and answers. And those are just the three things that I've been focusing on as we look forward to my arrival in August. And those are listening, communicating, and early priorities. And so what I've been doing over the past several weeks is working with the school's executive team, with external stakeholders like this group, to understand what their interests are, what they see the future of Wisconsin as, what the current opportunities are, what the challenges are. And those conversations have been really, really invigorating and remind me of what got me so enthusiastic about this position, which is the people at Wisconsin, whether we're talking about students, faculty, and staff. And it also reminds me about the excellence of the university as a whole and its focus on training the next generation. I also wanted to let you know that a big priority for me is communication. And as I land on campus August 1 and beyond, it's going to be important for me to find ways to connect with folks that are internal, my peer deans and administrators, as well as external stakeholders like the Dean's Circle and Board of Visitors and many, many other groups. And so I'm really looking forward to communicating with you through multiple formats and getting to know you a lot better. That's how we move things forward. I've also been focusing on early priorities, and Mark has mentioned a number of them. A big one for me is ensuring that our next generation curriculum, our new curriculum, is successful. And that does have to do with completing the revisions, but it also has to do with resources, whether we're talking about additional personnel or equipment. We're looking very, very closely at what additional resources will also be needed to complete the addition and renovation to the next to the hospital, both in the north and south buildings. And so I'll be teaming up with Christy and others to understand what those needs are and how we advance them. We're also in the process of looking at salary equity for our amazing faculty, whether we're talking about foundational scientists or clinician scientists. And Mark has begun that process, and I'm really, really looking forward to continuing it with the support of the provost. There are a lot of great initiatives going on campus, and many are aware of RISE, which comes from Chancellor Mnuchin. And I think there are going to be opportunities for the school to leverage existing faculty and to hire new faculty through those initiatives that are going to support programs like aging biology, AI, and even a healthy environment. Finally, I just want to mention that another priority of mine is going to be looking at longer range objectives and goals. And the strategic plan for the school is due to expire in 2025. And so probably towards the end of 24, beginning of 25, we'll start to gather external stakeholders, internal stakeholders together to generate ideas about what are the long range next directions for the school. So with that, I am eager to answer your questions, and I hope Mark will be available. I don't know if he will be, but really looking forward to sharing thoughts on those.
Great to see you here, Mark. As a reminder, if you have questions, so please add them to the chat and we will answer those. But first, we're going to start with some comments that were submitted in advance. The first one was just a statement about someone excited about progress report on the new building. Mark covered that in his video. One thing to mention, if you go to animalsneedheroes2.com, we do on the building plan site have some pictures of progress to give you a little bit of a teaser of what's to come. We are expecting that the first 2 floors of the north building, so the hospital, will be opening in early June. Stay tuned for exact dates, but that site is a place to see some great pictures that Seth has taken for us. So I'm going to start with kind of the first question, which is about a concern about the lack of interest among new graduates to work in rural mixed animal practices throughout the state, with a special focus on the northern half. John, you'll learn that what northern half means varies perhaps on where you're coming from in Wisconsin. But noting that attracting talent falls largely on the current practitioners in those areas, and some have done better than others. What's the school doing to encourage and foster interest some students have in this kind of work?
Well, Christy, I think this is such an important question. And not only is it a Wisconsin issue, it's a national level issue. And I know Mark and the school have worked hard already to try to incorporate a variety of tactics to help with recruitment to northern Wisconsin and to other rural areas of the state. And some of those include K through 12 outreach, for example, including practitioners from those areas in events throughout the curriculum, and also taking the time to travel to those areas to understand practitioners. And I'm committed to continuing to do those things. Here at Texas A&M, we have substantial rural outreach, even through our small animal department. And so I think we have to look at ways to continue outreach to those communities, whether we're talking through extension and collaborating with the College of Agriculture, or whether we're talking about expanding initiatives that already have been successful, like the Dairyland Initiative, for example. I also think that we've got to look very, very hard at recruitment. And I know the Office of Professional Programs and the Academic Affairs Office is continuing to work on that. We have to get into the communities and make sure that students have understand what the opportunities are associated with rural veterinary medicine. And we also have to make sure our students that are finishing their learning journey within the school are aware of programs like the Federal Loan Forgiveness Program, which can make it a little bit easier for people to join those communities. So those are just a few perspectives. This is not an easy issue. It's a complex issue that applies not only to vet med, but to all health sciences, I think.
Mark, there's a question about the ER and wondering if the ER opening is the ER going to be opening more hours to serve patients with after-hour problems, or are they still being sent to other locations?
So overall, compared to what we were facing during the pandemic, we are doing a much better job as far as keeping the ER open. It was a challenging time because a lot of people couldn't get their patients into normal veterinary medical care. So a lot of people were taking them into ER locations. There's a nationwide shortage of veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses. We've undergone an effort in the last year to significantly increase their salaries with help from the campus. And so we've really ameliorated that problem. The other piece we're facing, and then I'll give you the good news, is this is the not good news, is we should have 4 full-time faculty in ER, and right now we're down to 2. We have an open search for those 2 other positions. One of the folks is not gone yet. He's retiring, so he's still here to help. And so we believe we'll be fully staffed by sometime this summer. Regardless of all those things, we are open the majority of the time. There's the occasional time that we are closed overnight. So it's dramatically better than it was 2 years ago. And I'd say over the last year, there's been fewer closures. The one really silver lining is when the new building opens in June, we hope, it's going to significantly and dramatically increase the space we have for our ER and our intermediate care ward, which will enable us to see many more cases and many more patients. So I think the future is bright. It's been a tough couple of years for a lot of us, but I really think that we're on the right trajectory.
Mark, maybe you can take this one too. Are students learning more strategies to be more compassionate in some cases where their family pet might have to possibly be euthanized, and how it is hard on the family to deal with this situation?
So there's 2 good pieces of news on that front. We've always trained our students around these really challenging issues. We have, just to be blunt, we have a course or at least a series of lectures on how do you talk to a client about whether their animal needs to be euthanized or not. We have a professional skills program right now where students are trained in communication and having these type of difficult conversations. And in the new curriculum, which we believe will launch in the fall of 25, there will actually be a professional skills training program throughout the entire first 3 years of their education. It'll start literally on the first day that they start. And a lot of it will be about communications. How do you handle these kinds of situations? As I highlighted earlier in the video, we have the WISCARES program where we are in very challenging environments with people that are homeless or housing unstable. And it really, that in that context, is teaching them about cultural competency, how to have these difficult conversations. And so I do believe we're in a good space, but I believe we'll be even in a better space after we launch our new curriculum.
So I am going to get to other questions that were submitted in advance, but Mark, you just touched on 2 things that have come up with the chat and questions there. One is a question about plans to expand WISCARES, and the others was related to the future curriculum and how we're going to be exposing students to the diverse opportunities in other careers, including governmental and non-governmental agencies, including the military. So 2 questions there, one about WISCARES and one about the curriculum exposing students to other careers.
Component, we've significantly expanded WISCARES over the last 5 years. And so it's unclear to me right now that we'd expand it dramatically more. We have our own dedicated clinic on the south side of Madison, as you may know. For the person who asked that question, we probably have dedicated 10 people that work in that facility in addition to, and that's people from pharmacy, nursing, social work, et cetera, in addition to our folk. I don't see us dramatically expanding that opportunity other than making sure that we make sure it's stable and we're serving that portion of the community. We are known, to the second question, we are known nationally as one of the schools of veterinary medicine that really allows students to explore the wide array of career opportunities available to them, whether it's working in the government, USDA, or the CDC, or in the pharmaceutical industry, or in the pet food industry. We absolutely will continue to do that. In the context of the current curriculum, we do that. We have this thing called other emphasis, which enables people in their 4th year to pursue pretty much anything you want to pursue. If you want to do wildlife in Africa, if you want to go work in DC as a lobbyist, I mean, as a veterinarian, of course, you're able to do that. And within the new curriculum, we'll absolutely still be able to do that. One thing in the new curriculum that we're doing that I think is going to be a big boon is we're expanding the length of the clinical year. Right now it's a year, and it's going to be a year plus the last half of the spring semester of their 3rd year. So it'll be expanded by 8 additional weeks, which will give them more opportunities to pursue that broad array of careers that are available to them.
There was a question, or not a question, but just a statement, John, and I think this is more directed to you, that someone wrote in that they were a 30-plus year resident of Conroe, Texas before they moved north. And while living in Texas, on the advice of their veterinarian, they took their cat to the Texas A&M Veterinary School for the best possible care. And it's no surprise that that's what they received, and wanted to be sure to welcome you to Madison. So that is for you, Dr. Levine. Next question that came in advance is about DEI, and the School of Veterinary Medicine led the campus on the issue of DEI, reading the question here, to include funding the implementation of several programs. And the question is, how will you keep these programs thriving in the face of some of the recent legislative initiatives?
Do you want me to take that one, Christy?
That's to me or to John? That's to me, I think.
I think, Mark, that was for you. Yeah.
Okay. So emphatically, under my leadership, and I've talked to John many times, and he can talk to it himself, under his leadership, we are dedicated and focused on continuing to support diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts going forward, whether that's in scholarship support, whether that's in the educational opportunities we provide to our students, whether it's the counseling we provide to our students. We'll continue to do that. There is, for those that are paying attention to Wisconsin politics, some headwinds on that front, principally in how we, the titles we provide to our folks that are focused in DEI. It's a little unclear to me where those titles will end up. I mean, they're talking right now about some of them, and I'm not sure that'll be, you know, our assistant dean and diversity, equity, inclusion. They'll be more focused on student success, which obviously DEI is focused on, but it will not lessen our support, passion, and knowledge that this is a critical component to not only the veterinary medical profession, but to our students' success. And I would actually hand it off to you, John, since you're taking the reins to comment. But I certainly, from my conversations with him, believe that's the case for him as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I couldn't agree more with everything that you've said. And for those that don't know, in Texas, we have SB 17, which banned DEI in higher education. And that's been in place since September 1 of 2023 at our institution. And so, you know, the realities are that state legislatures do have an impact on the programs that we can host and how we have to go about things. And at the same time, I believe that DEI starts with inclusion. I've talked with Richard just today, who's our assistant dean for DEI in the school. And he's also committed to that and committed to building a really, really strong community. And I think even with the changes in the state legislature, we should be able to do that work and create an inclusive culture. And that's where it starts. And we'll work with campus and with the legislature to do as much as we can do in a way that supports everybody.
Our next question, and maybe John, you should take this one because it was, what will the new dean do to support the development of women leaders so that the next SVM dean might be a woman?
Yeah. And I think this is a fantastic question. So thanks to whoever submitted this one. And it touches on, another societal / national issue, which is how do we develop women leaders? And I think in vet med, despite now being a profession that enrolls a majority of our students from the female gender, the majority of deans are not women. And probably now we're at about 50% of our department chairs being women, despite 80 or more percent of our graduates being women. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that, both societal and reasons that have to do with, quite frankly, how some institutions and people interface with women and what the expectations are within the workplace. And without going too far in the weeds, what I would share is that we need to do better. We've got to work with our campus to make sure that we've got appropriate leadership support, not only for women and training, but for everybody who wants to be a leader. Some of that can be within the school. Some of it's going to have to be external, and there are fantastic programs, whether we're talking about the Harvard Institute of Higher Education that's got female leadership programs, but also broader ones. And I think it's going to be important to identify individuals early and to mentor them and make sure they have the time to do what they want. And the final thing I'll share is that most of my mentors have been women. Most of the leaders that I started as an early career faculty member working under were women, and they were fantastic. Whether that's in research, Amy Heimberger and Linda Noble for me, or whether that was in the clinical domain, Sharon Kerwin, who's a surgeon just like Mark. So this is something I'm really committed to helping with, and it's work that we've got to do together.
Another future question, John, will education in behavior medicine be included at some point in the future? And are there any preliminary plans that you're aware of for that in the works already?
Yeah, so I think everybody on this call, or most on this call, know that for primary care veterinarians, and that's 80% of who we graduate, behavioral medicine's an everyday occurrence. Whether we're talking about dogs, whether we're talking about equine medicine, it's incredibly important, and the school doesn't have a behaviorist. That's the reality. And it takes a lot of infrastructure to develop a full behavior service, probably 2 or 3 faculty. I think there are a lot of ways to approach this, and I know in the new curriculum that selectives are going to be utilized to provide students with the exposure that they need. I think there are ways to bring expertise in, whether that's virtually, whether that's face-to-face through locums. There are opportunities to send individuals out to practices. And so I think there are a lot of strategies that we can and we will use. And this is an area that we're going to have to keep thinking about and collaborating together on, both with our general practitioners and also with our educational experts.
We had a question in the chat wondering what the ideal candidate for admittance looks like, and particularly when I think for veterinarians to keep in mind when they're providing shadow opportunities for potential students. I don't know which one of you would like to take that one.
Mark, you're muted.
I can tell you where we've come from, and then maybe John can tag team with me. I think as some of you might or might not know, we've been and this goes back to the rural practice question, probably us and Cornell are the best in the country in that admission cycle, really staying focused on people that are both from rural communities as well as large animal, mixed animal, dairy practice focused communities. And I'd say maybe better than almost anyone admit, on the way in, folks that are interested in maybe 20-ish% of our incoming students express an interest and have history, background in rural practice, rural areas. And that's one of the ways that we've tried to address, training people to go back into those communities where they came from. And we'll absolutely continue to do that. Realistically, the typical veterinary medical student, they don't have to have a 4.0, but they certainly have to have over a 3.0. So they have to be, an AB student type of person. They do have to have substantial experience. We try not to go crazy like some places that have mandatory hours of exposure with veterinarians, but they should have a broad array of experiences, ideally in both small and large, not required, but at least some level of experience with veterinarians so they understand the profession. And really, that's the range. I mean, the challenge is, some of you may know, if you're a state of Wisconsin resident, we admit 62 students right now, and about 240 people apply for that. So it's about a 4-to-1 challenge. If you happen to be in a state that does not have a veterinary medical school and you're applying to us as a non-resident, it's about 2,000 applicants for 34 slots. So it is very, very challenging. So as you might imagine, those students applied to, I think the average right now is 7 veterinary schools nationally that they apply to on the hope to get into one. The good news on that front a little bit, which is not really answering your question, but there's, I think, 9 or more schools coming online. So there'll be more opportunities available to people who want to become veterinarians going forward. But, as far as the school area medicine, it's really been about people that have kind of that exposure to the profession and are reasonably good students, not the best in the class, but certainly we need to believe that they can succeed when they are admitted to the School of Veterinary Medicine. But John's going to be leading this coming up, and so he can add on to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think Mark brings up how competitive getting into Wisconsin is, and I think that speaks to the excellence of the school. 2,000 people applying for 33 spots, and how do you select these individuals optimally? I think the principles that Mark outlined, resonate with me, and I'm a big believer in holistic admissions. And what that means is we don't just pick somebody out of a hat. We don't just focus on GPA, but we look at a number of dimensions, not only including academics, but how people communicate, what their compassion is, what their empathy is, what their drive is, what their experiences are, what they want to do. Because our goal is to develop the next generation of clinical leaders, research leaders, and we do that by looking at candidates holistically. So I'm excited to work with Lynn Mackey, who's the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at the school, to continue to look at admissions. It's important.
Thank you. I just texted Pat and Heidi to see if they can put in the chat the link to our DVM application page that has a little bit more information about the selection process and what people look at. So that can potentially be a resource. We also had a few questions in the chat about our class size, and wondering if either of you would want to address kind of what plans or opportunities there might be for increasing the current class size at the school.
I'll lead off because it'll make John laugh. I think, as some of you know, when I started as dean, it had been true for the history of the school. We had 80 students, and around 8 years ago, we increased the class size to 96, so by 20%. And that took 4 years to fully implement, because you got to go through each year of the class. As we all might know, there's a significant, at least I believe, veterinarian shortage nationally as well as worldwide. I highlighted that there's some new schools coming on board, but it's going to take 4 to 7 years before those students graduate. The challenge we have, and it's hard to believe since we're about to complete a $185 million building, when we designed that building, it was before the pandemic, long before the pandemic. And within it, and you can put this on me, there was no major focus on increasing our teaching spaces other than what occurs within the clinic. And as you know, we doubled the size of our small mill hospital. We have no ability in the current infrastructure that we have to expand our student numbers even by a person. So we are stuck at 96. Christy and I started about a year ago having conversations with campus about what it would take to, believe it or not, do another new building or another new space or spaces to enable us to increase our class size to some other number, whether it's 120, 140, I'm not sure. We are actually in the next week or two, we're going to have conversations around that. I'm not sure where those are going to lead, but what they're going to do is they're going to be a handoff, a baton relay, where I hand that baton off to John to take those conversations forward with the hope. One of the strategies, without getting into the details, might enable us to have that space in the next 3 or 4 years. The other one, which would be building a whole new building, might be more like 10. But there is a window that we might be able to take advantage of to be able to further increase our class size. But I'll hand that off to John because it'll be under his watch.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And as Mark knows and Christy knows, I'm coming from a program that's had massive, that's probably the right word, enrollment growth from 136 to 200 here at Texas A&M in a period of about 5 or 6 years, and also parallel increases with the number of Ross St. George students that we train in the 4th year. And I think we need to look at this carefully. Mark is right. I've seen the auditoriums, they're pretty landlocked. I don't know if you could fit another 1 or 2 seats in there, but it's pretty tight already. And so I think it's good for us to start looking at how we increase class size, because we don't know really in the next 5 to 10 years how these trends of increasing demand for veterinarians are going to play out. And there's some groups like Morgan Stanley that think it's going to continue to soar. And if that's true, we're going to need to be ready for that for our state and for the upper Midwest region and beyond. So I think we got to look at it. We got to make sure the resources are there to support those students, whether that's faculty, whether it's space, whether it's the kind of high fidelity models that you need in today's integrative veterinary curricula. And I think we can also probably with the new building start to look at Ross St. George students and whether we want to expand that part of our educational portfolio. Again, making sure the resources balance with what the aspiration is.
Great, thanks. John, you touched on something that related to a question that was asked earlier, related to kind of the challenges in making sure that we have the faculty, and the person asking the question noted with additional schools coming online, how are we going to compete and make sure that we have the faculty that we need?
Yeah, I think it's this is another national challenge, and some on this call may not know that we just got done leading a study through AABC looking at this very issue, and we asked early career faculty and residents what it would take to enter academia. Really simple question. And what we got back is probably not a big surprise. The top most important things have to do with climate, with culture, with workplace flexibility. And I didn't use the word salary yet. Salary is important as we look at private practice offers. But the unique work that we can do in places like Wisconsin is really critical for us to emphasize. And we need to be probably more flexible than we ever have. That can be hard in academia. We need to be broad in how we recruit. So that's not only phoning our friends, but phoning absolutely everybody that we think might be fantastic. I'm encouraged by what's going on right now because candidates are coming through. Not that we're hiring all of them, but we're hiring some of them. And Wisconsin, I think, is much better positioned than many schools. But that doesn't mean that we have to stop working hard. We have to work actually even harder on all of the issues that I mentioned.
Thank you. We're getting all sorts of questions coming in, which is fabulous. What is something, John, that you've seen done at Texas that you think you'd be interested in bringing to the UW?
Wow. Well, one thing that I think I shared at the outset is it's going to be very important for me to learn about the organization and to work collaboratively with people as we start to think about new things. I would be very curious, and I don't know enough yet, about what we're doing to encourage our residents to enter academic pathways and what we're doing to attract a very broad and diverse cohort of trainees into our advanced programs. Because while 80% of our students go into general practice, the academicians of the future are mostly coming from residency training programs. And so I think we got to look at those programs really closely and make sure that they're supporting people in the right ways to enter academic careers. So we have some things that we've done. We have an underserved communities internship that accomplishes the dual mission of community outreach, plus attracting individuals from places like rural and urban America that want to go back and serve. So that helps us with our recruitment and our DEI missions, although we don't have those missions anymore in Texas. And then we've got some programs that combine residency training with either fellowships or graduate degrees, and those have worked fantastically well. So since we developed the dual master's and ACDS small animal residency, half of our small animal surgery residents have gone into academia, half, and they're staying there. So there are different recipes I think we can borrow, not only from Texas A&M, but from elsewhere to try to address some of our opportunities.
We had a couple questions / comments about the kind of dependence on private practitioners to help aid in the veterinary education experience, particularly, Mark, you mentioned expanding the 4th year by 8 weeks. Curious if either of you could comment on that.
So the current concept right now, on average, just so people understand it, depending on the emphasis for our students, they spend about 8 weeks on average outside of the hospital, our hospital, anywhere in the country, actually, to work with veterinarians to understand the profession better or to pursue either areas or practices they might want to work in someday. There are, in that other emphasis that I highlighted, the ability to do many more weeks than that. And this is for people interested in research or governmental work or those kinds of things. The current idea with the new curriculum is to expand that primary care focus that John was talking about. Right now, our students, the typical student spends 2 weeks in WisCares. They spend 2 weeks in our shelter medicine program. They spend 2 weeks in our primary care program. And this is small animal people I'm talking about right now. So that's 6 weeks. And then they do spend 8 to 10 weeks out in private practice. And so, in some ways, for me talking to private practitioners, because there's such a challenge for them in hiring new graduates, they very much value that exposure because it's a recruitment tool for them. It's a way for them to say, here's our practice. If you match, here's where we'd like you to work after you graduate. With that addition of 8 weeks that we want to be more primary care focused, yes, there is the opportunity for the practitioner, but also maybe the challenge. But at least so far, I haven't seen that challenge, because literally our students go, U.S. wide. They're not only focused in the state of Wisconsin. And I think both for the practitioners that I've talked to, as well as our students, it's a really valuable experience.
Ditto. No, I totally agree with that. And I think getting students out into practice not only is great for the practices in terms of recruiting, but it exposes students to practice in the real world. And some of the most impactful rotations I had in my fourth year were in big specialty practices or primary care practices. And I've drawn upon those experiences throughout my career. So I'm a big fan of ensuring that we get them out there.
There was one comment or question kind of noting that there are a lot of spaces on the UW-Madison campus, and this goes back to expanding the class size, and could the school use some of those? I think ultimately, and Mark or John, if you want to add to this, the kind of education and facilities that we need to train our students isn't necessarily in abundance elsewhere on campus. Would be one, restriction to us being able to do that, if you want to add to that.
Whether it's a new curriculum, and I have a vision of what that is, and we're already kind of nailing down what the first year of that will look like. But even in the current curriculum, it's not about lecture hall space. It's not necessarily about, do we have enough lecture space? Because we could do that in buildings adjacent to us, or virtually, or asynchronously, which means you create it, they watch it, and then you have a separate time where you talk about it. What really is a limitation is laboratory space. It's where we teach our students about anatomy, or bacteriology, or where we do our spay neuters on our shelter animals, to teach our students how to do spays and neuters, but also to serve the shelter medicine community. That's where our limitations are. And there is not, that I know of, and I've looked, available space on the campus or near us that we could have, for example, cadaver animals at, where we could teach those things. And so, I know some places have taken an alternative solution, which I'm resistant to, but John can address, where they're actually teaching the same laboratory multiple times a day, even into the evening, so that, so rather than we teach classes split in half. So right now, about 38, if I could do math, 48 per time. And then we repeat it twice. But, theoretically, if you want to increase to 130, you could teach it 3 times, which likely would mean you got to teach it in the evenings. You'd have to significantly expand the number of instructors you have, because they're not obviously going to work 60 hours a week. But I think it's a challenge, but I'll leave it to John, because he's the one that's going to get to make those decisions soon.
Yeah, I think the spaces have got to be right. The people have got to be right, like we're in terms of numbers and expertise, like we were talking about earlier. So I just think enrollment growth is got to be a priority that we've got to look at very, very carefully. It's important. It's got to be done well, like the curricular revision that I think's been done very, very well and carefully and thoughtfully. So I don't think it's something we can dive into right away.
Just a couple comments, and then I'll ask what I think will need to be our final question, as it's almost 8 o'clock here. There were a couple comments about the WisCares program. I think Stella from Madison and Tim from Milwaukee asked about opportunities to perhaps expand WisCares and to north side of Madison or Milwaukee. So I'll just put that out there, John, for you to consider as you're in your learning phase here. There was also some really nice comments from a couple of our alums, Brad and Jeff from the class of '87, just indicating, their strong support for you, and appreciate those nice comments, and look forward to you having an opportunity to meet with them. The last question that I think I saw in the chat, and I do want to make one comment before we get to that. I think both Mark and I, John, and I apologize from this, have said your last name both ways, and obviously only one way is correct. And so if you would like to, for the group, make sure that we're very clear as we welcome you, that we all know how to pronounce your name. So I apologize.
Well, it's a complex name. It's like tomato, but it's Levine, and lots of different ways to pronounce it. So no problem.
All right.
I changed my pronunciation at the end because I heard Christy pronounce it differently.
I saw you guys do that, and I just didn't have the heart to correct you. But here you go, correcting yourselves.
I'm a visual person, and probably saw that pop up, and that's where my brain went. Yes, and Pat has reminded us in the chat that we have a nice little reminder that Dr. Levine is the dean, and we can, easily remember it that way. So last question was about our shelter medicine program, and question what you see as kind of the most significant challenges and opportunities ahead for shelter medicine in the next 3 years.
Well,
I don't. Do you want to start with that one, Mark?
I'll start. I mean, a little bit is an answer to the comment that was said earlier about serving the north side of Madison as well as Milwaukee. As I think some of you might know, is our shelter medicine program actually goes door to door in communities in both the south side. Don't quote me whether it's the north side of Madison, but also Milwaukee, where they're literally going door to door and asking people if they have a pet, if so, what needs do they have, and actually help serve that community. So it's different than WisCares, but it's still trying to serve people in need. And we call it serving. What they actually do is serve in what we call veterinary deserts, where there's no veterinarians available to that community to serve them. So that's a space that we're already in. We, as Christy knows, are creating a new space for our shelter medicine team on the 3rd floor of our new building. They're kind of stuck off, I wouldn't say on the side, but they're not in the most ideal spaces right now. And so I do believe that, as far as the current program and how it serves our shelter medicine students and all of our students' needs, it's really robust. I'd leave it to John to talk about what the future might hold, but for those of us, and I've been at a number of these presentations that see what our students do in shelter medicine in the country, it's absolutely amazing what they do. And we are clearly one of the leaders, if not the leader, of shelter medicine in the country right now.
Yeah, and I think between WisCares, which is a little bit different program, and the shelter medicine program, the amount of outreach, especially to urban underserved areas, is tremendous, and we need to look at expanding that. We need to look at expanding the outreach to the northern part of the state too. I don't want to forget that. Everybody on this call knows that there are access to care issues right now in veterinary medicine because there's a shortage of veterinarians and veterinary technicians, but care costs a lot of money. That's the other reality, and I think it's an imperative for institutions like Wisconsin that aspire to be the best, that we don't only do tertiary care level medicine, that we don't only focus on our innovation. Those are very important areas, but we're also keenly aware of where access issues exist, that we're working to address them, and that we expose our students to them. So important. So these are programs that I'm eager to look at how we expand them, what partnerships are necessary to do that.
Fair questions. Mark, your last Dean's Circle event here, I think. Would you like to wrap us up?
Don't make me cry. But what I would say is this, is that I very much valued the relationships of not only everybody within the school, but across the campus, around the world in the veterinary medical community, as well as our faculty, staff, and students within the School of Veterinary Medicine. And it's something I'll treasure. I've treasured for the last 34 years, treasured as the dean. And I would say that the thing that one of the things I'm happiest about is I didn't know John at all. I knew him a little bit by reputation when he was named, but I've had an opportunity not only to see him in person here at the school, but also had an opportunity to talk to him many times over the last several weeks. And I'm thrilled that he's going to be the next dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine. I'm thrilled for the people that I have enjoyed working with and the fact that they get to work with him. And I know that you and the Dean Circle, as you get to know him over the course of the next many years, will be equally thrilled.
You're making me blush, Mark. Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in September at our in-person event at the luncheon on September 12th. Have a great night.